Go ahead. Quick overview of what we've done thus far. We've got the coolant lines hooked up to the new reservoir, so we had to use we actually bought the replacement lines, but obviously they're designed for the stock tank. So this upper hose is 5/16. The lower hose is 1/2 inch, so those are just clamped. We ran just a regular hose for the brake booster to where its respective spot underneath the throttle is. And I'm pretty sure I've already gone over the throttle body stuff. So on the air to water intercooler, this is all done. We have this hose here for a check valve. I forgot what the check valve's for. We're waiting on the coupler to show up for the intake, but the intake basically sits in here, right down there. And on the air to water intercooler, so this might look a little funky to you guys, but this is actually the highest point of the cooling system. So there's going to be, what's going to happen is that you'll end up getting air bubbles that are stuck in here. So I put this Y here with this cap, so you can unscrew this, and I made a hose that's a 45 that you can stick onto here and then fill it up that way. So that way you'll fill at the very top, and then it also doubles as a bleed port. If it does not work out, then this will always work out as a bleed port itself, being that it's the highest part of the system. So we're going to have two hoses running down this way. It'll go down that way basically, and then it'll reach into the original hoses for the original air to water intercooler. As you guys saw, we've got all the fuel system stuff done. I'm doing a bunch of wiring that I've got to tidy up in here for the new fuel pump relay and all the other stuff. So on the NSX, we tried to hook up our AEM fuel pressure sensor into the test port. So we couldn't do that, so we had to order a new banjo bolt. This banjo bolt is from Russell. Here's the part number. And so you'll remove your return banjo bolt where the test fitting was, and then it gives us a 1/8 NPT output. So here's the banjo here, and you can see the 1/8 port. Here's the new pipe that we're working on here. So as you saw yesterday, it was collapsing everywhere, so now we're just trying to get it all completely tight. That way we can get sections as close as possible to get this sucker in its place. Alrighty, so a couple things here. So looking at our outputs, we actually do not have a TAC output. So this is the service manual here, and I don't know if you guys, hopefully you guys can see it, but pin C4 is the RPM output. So we don't have RPM output, and it's outputted from the ECU. So with that actually might be the reason why traction control is not working, because it's not seeing an RPM output wire. So in the software, in the Haltech software, I've turned on air conditioning and tachometer. I have to reboot the ECU. I'm not gonna do that just yet, just because I wanted to run to bleed the coolant out a little bit longer. It's not quite hot yet, but it's getting warm, and 206 is pretty normal, I think. If I rev it up a little bit, the temps do come down. So as you can see, the temperature is dropping a little bit. So it tells me that there's still a little bit of air in the system. We'll rev it up a couple more times, just let it bleed out. You guys can see like the funnel right there. One thing is you can also see the charge pipe collapsing. Anyways, so that's kind of where we're at. I'll let it run. It's close to closing time already here. So we'll let it run for a bit longer, for a little bit longer. Reboot the ECU just to make sure that we have it. And what I'm going to try to do is see if we can repurpose B19 to something else, I guess. B19 is the intake BPS, which we don't have anymore. So I'll see if I can repurpose that DVO output to tachometer. Just wanted to show you guys something really quick here. So ambient temperature is 65. Check out the supercharger. And the supercharger itself is 250 degrees. And this is why these superchargers are called heat-ins instead of eaten. Air going into the intake manifold, 160 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the intercooler pump on the NSX. It looks pretty gross. Quite a bit of rust in here. It's a Sherfro pump, so it can be rebuilt, but let me test it really quick and just see if it's still good. Yeah, I don't think this pump is any good. Then we're probably going to just swap out the water pump to an actual Davies Craig pump. This one was just making all sorts of noises and there's rust in it, so I don't want to deal with it. And then obviously we're going to rework this reservoir to bring it higher up onto the car. Alright, so here it is. We switched out the water pump to a Davies water pump. The old Sureflow over here, we went to go test it and it was just making all sorts of noises and the pump would run and not run. And inside of it was like just kind of nasty corrosion looking stuff. So went ahead and opted against that. Jeremiah here moved the reservoir. So the reservoir used to be down here and basically it was lower than the pump. So we don't think it was actually ever feeding without difficulty. And another thing, the biggest thing though, was that pain in the ass to get to the battery with the reservoir in place. So with the reservoir higher up now, you can actually, it's still not easy, but it's way easier. You can now slide the battery out, and the battery actually goes into this little factory tray here, believe it or not, with the handles to help assist in sliding it out. So he made a sweet little mount, and that's all good there. He and I got excited and we started bleeding the system already, and it held probably about 3 gallons of coolant. So on the back side, again, we had it all bled out. We have this little sweet guy that goes like this to help assist in bleeding it. Jeremiah made a whole new pipe here, so we're waiting for, I got to order this coupler here to get it in, but it's all back together. Got the car started, seems a lot happier now that this isn't restricting. So yeah, so now we just got to wait for the IAT sensor itself and the coupler in the back. Then we've got to do some more wiring. I didn't get a chance to do the tack wiring today, so I got to do tack wiring, and then I also have to do the radiator fan and the intercooler pump wiring. So the thing about those two is that the fans on older Hondas have their own separate fan switch. The ECU doesn't control the fans. So I think we're going to go ahead and have the ECU control the fans and then maybe have a separate output for it to run the pump. But I'm going to speak to the owner over the weekend to see if he wants me to go ahead and knock all that additional stuff out there. So that's basically it. We're going to let it sit over the weekend here with it topped off, and hopefully we're good to go.